No matter what they say about you, at the end of the day, it's 10 drivers, 10 cars, and a track. That's all it is. All you have to do is drive.
It's time to taste the asphalt. The Rimba Grand Prix is back.
No more street races, no more betting with lunatics. We are done.
This might be the greatest RGP ever.
That's their only problem, is the new racers. But I did manage to find a new recruit. Name's Tag. A bit rough around the edges, but definite potential.
Tag.
Mr. King has an eye for talent, Tag. How would you like to join the Rimba Grand Prix?
I got the invite!
You don't know what the RGP is like, Tag. It's not all driving and magazine covers. It can get bad.
You got a problem, rookie.
It's an honor to be racing with you. My name is...
A waste of my time.
Chin up, kid.
Try not to die. That would be a bad start to the season.
You're having a bad day.
First day and I'm a walking joke.
It's just cars and drivers, Tag. So drive.
The wait is over. Life, once more, has meaning. The Rimba Grand Prix starts now.
Hello Malaysia and welcome to The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam and today we have a very interesting show. For the longest time in this country, we've had animation series and we've also had the godfather of animation studios. We had Hassan Malik here. We get to speak to all these people behind the scenes who come up with these productions, but we never speak to the talent behind these productions, or we hardly speak to them. For the longest time there was the Holy Trinity in the country, which was Jeffrey Nicholson, Patrick Theo and Rodney Fernandez, who were great voiceover talents. Now that pool has grown. It's a large pool now and there's so many talent voiceovers or voice talents out there, and today we get to speak to two of them. One of them, you know, he'll be in shortly. In the meantime, let's get to know Stephen Tan, who's worked with Trax FM, a station I worked with some time ago, and he's here with us. Stephen, a very good morning to you and thank you very much for joining us. Well, it's great to know that the voiceover industry is alive and well in this country.
Yes, it is very alive and well. From back in the day to that small pool of people, like you said, it's grown to a very big pool, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to be part of that pool. One of the fish that managed to survive, make a living through it, and it's been a great journey so far.
So this is your latest gig, Rimba Racer?
It's one of my latest gigs because with animation, the process usually that we record the voices in the very early stages, and then the animators go to work, you know, and they put everything together, and then we come in and do pickups. So we're actually at the very early stages. So it's been quite a few months since I did the last few episodes, but
they say in animation getting into character is very important. And what was your prep for that?
Okay, here's the thing. When I went to audition for the show, I actually went looking for to be the side cast, the supporting cast, because I usually get stuck. I'm the guy who usually ends up playing a few different characters. Because I'm able to change my voice.
Or schizophrenia, which one is it?
Yes, it's either one, I'm not too sure. So stuff like that. But when I went in, they told me that they've already filled up most of the supporting cast, and they were looking for Tag and Axel. Tag is the tiger, he's the lead character, and Axel, who's the bad guy. One of the bad guy drivers. So with Tag, what happened was they told me to just go for it. And I did it.
So Tag is the tiger.
The tiger. And later on, what I found out was that when you talk about getting into character, Tag is part of my character. He's just an amplification of part of me. And Axel is that dark, brooding. I liken him to Batman. Because he's not really a bad guy through and through. He's just been through a lot of things. And that's how I got the inspiration to go, because Tag is like this. It's like, I got the invite. But for Axel, he's on a completely different spectrum. Been there, done that. the world is a dark place.
And do as an Axel. Do as an Axel.
So Axel's like this. Don't waste my time, kid.
Yeah. It sounds like Marlon Brando, but yeah. So you've been doing voiceovers for a long time now.
I've been doing it full time for about 4 or 5 years.
Huh?
Yes.
And it's the best job ever. You go into a studio. Of course, you need to have talent to do this. You walk into a studio, you do 2-3 minutes work, or if it's something long like a documentary, you do an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's great work working for yourself.
I can't complain because you are working for yourself.
Right.
Time-wise is pretty flexible. In terms of the financial payoff, it's pretty alright as well.
Right.
And the best thing is, you go in and every job is different. Every time you get to do something different, and it's 90% fun, to be honest. It's a lot of fun.
So with the talent you have doing voiceovers, did it help when you worked with National Radio?
Oh yes, it did. It did a lot because one thing, I had all the diction issues out of the way already.
Right.
And it was just in the sense it's sort of channeling a different character. But it's just being closer to the person and knowing how to project your voice.
Right.
Like if you go on national radio, you can't go like, "Hi, this is Steven and you're listening to national radio." You can't do that, right? But you can take that and just turn it back to your normal voice. "Hi, this is Steven. You're listening to national radio," and you get a little bit of that professional polish to it in terms of your voice projection.
And was it hard for you to find an identity or to bring your identity on the airwaves?
Not really, because
the real Steven.
Yeah, it was very comfortable for me.
Because one person could do that. Alan Zachariah could do that. We're talking about National Radio, Radio 4, which subsequently was rebranded to Trax FM, and he was working there for 3 years doing a show called Alternation. So doing a rock show, did you need to have like a rock voice?
Actually, I did think of that. I tried it for a little bit, and after that, I started gearing back towards how I actually am, but just keep it on the cool side, because at the end of the day, that show is targeted at teens and young adults. Yeah, so you can't sound too kiddish,
right,
but you don't want to sound too old. Yeah, so my voice and the way I was delivering it was pretty much where it was supposed to sit.
Right.
Yeah.
With what you're doing right now, after the audition, you started going through the scripts and you started putting together a voice for that character. Who guides you through this process?
Okay.
Within production.
Within production, we got the directors, Chiran, and also a couple of the other guys, Joe and Ayman as well. And it was very interesting because the moment I got the scripts, I had a very strong feeling this was going to be something very interesting. Because in terms of the script, the stories, the way the whole show is put together, the passion, I cannot emphasize this enough, the passion of the people behind the project, guys, the guys who were who created the whole concept. There was so much passion behind it that it was very hard to make it go wrong.
Right.
And with the direction they provided, it was perfect. Yeah.
So doing tag was probably easier than Axel.
Axel had very few lines,
right?
But I loved playing Axel because
it's the cut and dry,
straight to the point guy that you'll never get to play in most scenarios. Axel, I love playing his character because it was, as much as it seems like a journey for him in the show, it was a journey for me as well.
Right.
Yeah, to bring myself and the character together, and to find more and more common ground, so that
You're making it sound too easy. I'm sure you had some challenges with these things. Are you a one-take kind of guy, or does it take a while for you to...
I'm very 0 to 100 kind of person.
0 to 100, okay.
Yeah, so if say you come, could you try this a little bit slower, and make him sound a little bit happier, I just go in right away. I don't need like the backstory, of 15 minutes of how to do it.
Right.
So I'm very instantaneous when you want things. And the whole process was just so it was just great because
very overwhelming
because one of the most important things is for the directors and the people in charge to know what they want,
right,
and how they want things to be, because you've done some voice work as well. You probably I
try.
Yeah, you know
when I grew up I want to be like you.
You know that one line could be read or spoken in 100 or thousands of different ways.
Right.
So to find that one or two ways that will actually work and that will actually push the scene forward,
right,
that is always a challenge. Of course, as a talent, I do it to the best of my ability, but we still need the directors to to hone us in on exactly where the story is going, because they see the big picture.
Right.
We're just looking at the words on the script.
So Rimba Racer has been launched. It's when is it going to be on the air? Where is it going to be screened?
It's going to be on the air on January 10th. And they're rolling out
that's happening soon.
Yeah, it's happening soon. So they're rolling out the Malay version first, the BM version for our local markets. But unfortunately, I am in the English version,
right?
Which apparently will be out in further down in the future.
I don't know if we're going to play a video and get you to do more voiceovers for us, just so we have a feel of what voiceover work is all about. So let's just play a video and see what this video is all about, and we'll come back and see if we can match that to see if we've got the real voice here.
All right, we'll try.
The name is Axel. Speed is my business. The Falcon Mach 1 can take anyone on. They call me the Ace for good reason. I race, I win. The race has begun!
There you go, that's Axel. Can you do that exactly the way it sounds?
My name is Axel, and I drive the Falcon Mark 1, Gerard. Don't mess with me.
Gerard's not in the script. Well, so what other voices do you do? Do you do like hard sell voices for?
Yeah, definitely.
Coming soon. Yeah.
Coming soon, Gerard on Bernama TV.
Okay, what else can you do? Oh, it's great, man. Okay, let's keep this rolling. What else do we have?
It's like, coming this summer, the Disney favorite. Yeah, stuff like that. Or you can't even do voices like this. Voices like this? Or voices like this? And maybe sometimes we can go very old, Gerard.
So how do you look after your pipes?
I don't really do that.
Yeah? You don't do that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't actively go and damage it.
And don't drink warm water in the morning, stuff like that? No pantang larang?
No pantang, because for me it's the more you baby it,
right,
the easier it's gonna be. It's gonna get the easier it is.
But I'm sure there's you practice every so often. When
I do practice. What I do is I listen to radio ads. You know, I listen to other people as well.
Right.
I listen to anything I hear basically. Growing up, the reason I was able to do character voices and all that was because growing up when I was a kid, I was glued to the TV.
Right.
I was copying Bugs Bunny. I was copying everybody.
See, when you speak without an American accent, but when you do the voiceovers, you can
push it in.
You can push
but
it
if sometimes you want a different accent, you can even have that as well.
Right. And this is what accent?
I'm not too sure. Sometimes you just jumble things up, and sometimes you talk a little bit of a Jamaican accent, man.
Man. Irie. That's great, fantastic. Well, so with this animation series that you're doing, how long is the gig for? 13 episodes.
13 episodes.
Yeah. And if all goes well, a lifetime.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping.
Man, it's going to be making a lot of money.
Season 2, Season 10, and then the movie.
Right. For people who want to get into doing what you're doing, you know, saying if you have a son that talks too much and he can't do anything else, probably get into doing voiceovers. What's your tip or a piece of advice that you can give people who want to get into this industry, voiceover industry?
If you want to get into this industry, I have 3 golden rules of getting in and staying in. Number 1, show up on time.
Right.
So if you're called for a job, make sure you're there on time. Number 2, don't be a nasty person.
Right.
You know, because anybody else could have gotten this job, but for some reason you ended up getting a job. So be nice about it. And 3, do as good a job as you possibly can. Yeah.
So when you walk out of the studio, you know you've done your best.
You've done your best because
always know that you've done your best.
Yeah, because if you didn't do your best, then people would think that, oh, this guy might not have the goods to cut it, and they'll never call you again.
Right.
But if they see potential in you, then you might get another gig, which was what happened to me back then when I first started out. Because I used to be an audio engineer.
Right.
For another radio station. And then one fine day, I was recording all these talents and everything. I just told myself, okay, let's give this a shot.
Right.
I up and quit my job. I had nothing, and I just went for voiceovers right away.
Right.
So what happened was, I hunted down every recording studio I could find.
And you sent your...
I sent my profile, I sent my emails, I called them up. Some turned into kindergartens, some were residentials. And what happened was, at the end, I managed to get one guy. I called the front desk, I bugged my way up through the organization to get that one guy's contact. And I sent him my email with my samples, and he said, "Okay, come in.
Right.
Come in for a job." And the ball just started rolling from there.
Today, all that's history.
All that's history, and that's been like 4
Well,
years
congratulations.
ago.
It was
Thank
a pleasure
you so much.
having you here. We do
Pleasure
hope to
being
have you here for a longer interview and to walk us through the 101 of doing voiceovers.
Glad to hear
Well,
it.
speaking of voiceovers, we're going to be bringing in another talent. This one, you know, he's been here before. He's a face on Bernama TV. Well, he's going to come back in to share his experience doing voiceovers for this animation series, Rimba Racer. Stay with us right here on Bernama TV's Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam.
Thank you.
Isu semasa dan terkini industri kreatif tanah air. Perkembangan muzik tempatan, lensa anak seni, aksi layar perak, tanpa gosip dan sensasi, semuanya disisipkan selama setengah jam dalam Telesini bukan sekadar hiburan. Setiap Sabtu jam 12.30 tengah hari hanya di Bernama TV.
Kavita, Meling, dah siap ke belum? Sikit je lagi, Puan.
Apa menu kita hari ini?
Semua menu sihat. Ikan bakar, sup ayam, sayur-sayuran. Banyaklah.
Puan, banyaknya guna minyak. Bahayakan kesihatan lah.
Betul lah macam ni. Saya dah kurangkan separuh dari biasa ni. Cuba rasa ni. Sedap tak?
Biar kurang masin, jangan lebih.
Betul tu. Kita kena kurangkan minyak, gula,
garam dan santan dalam masakan. Barulah ramai pelanggan datang ke kedai kita.
Semuanya
sihat belaka.
Menyelami realiti, menjejaki masa, meninjau peristiwa, paparan kronikal kembara kehidupan, pelbagai keunikan juga pengalaman menarik. Segalanya disorotkan selama setengah jam dalam channel bernama setiap Ahad jam 9.30 malam hanya di Bernama TV.
You might know me as Mr. King. As organizer of the Rimba Grand Prix, I promise you the most spectacular show ever. So, let the games begin. And may the best racer win.
Rimba Racer, this has begun!
Well, there he is. He needs no introduction. Kevin Barnaby is back here on Bernama TV to join us to tell us a little bit about his life in voiceovers or the voiceover industry. Kevin, pleasure and an honor to have a great newsreader here.
Right. Great to be back here.
Well, how's life been, man?
Well, life's been pretty good, I think. Doing all this stuff, you know, getting the animation series and stuff like that. But otherwise, yeah, life has been pretty good. Pretty blessed.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're doing this now. This is your latest gig, and are you enjoying it?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It's the gig that, you know, I well and truly treasure because it's a lot of hard work that was put into it. So I really did enjoy doing it. Absolutely.
When you say hard work, how much of time is put into it?
For this, you know, since I was involved with this and I was doing two characters, you know, obviously it took quite a bit of time to do simply because, you know, it was something new for me.
Right.
I mean, all this while I was basically doing voiceovers for documentaries and ads and corporate videos and such, you know, and prior to that, I think you know.
And you thought Barry White had a very low, deep voice, huh?
Well, we can go lower if you like. Yeah. You know, so but yeah, I mean, basically, it took quite a bit of time to get into it, but I think once the ball started rolling, it sort of got a little bit more comfortable with me. So yeah, it became a lot easier after that.
Right. So you're playing the character King.
Yes, King.
Two characters and another character.
The other character is one of the racers. His name is Rex, and yeah, I think when you sort of look at the character of Rex, he's quite the imposing bully type, you know, and he's got that really, really low voice, you know. So there were two extremes when I was dealing with these two characters. One was obviously the normal voice, and the other extreme was the low macho guy. I'm going to beat you.
Getting the girth on the lows.
Really getting into the girth of it. You know, I mean, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing these two characters.
Right, and when you first went for the audition, I'm sure an audition is very easy for you. But when you first went for the audition, was it easy?
Well, I wouldn't say it was easy.
No, because you've been doing voiceovers for the longest time.
Well, okay, I've been doing it. Okay, when I first started doing voiceovers was when I was a newscaster on Bernama TV, believe it or not. And that was 10 years ago. You know, so when I first came for the audition then, I didn't have any expectation of what to, whether this was going to go anywhere. You know, newscasters, obviously, they have a certain sort of class of their own. You know, so I did the audition and I didn't think anything of it. And they called me, a couple of months later asking me to come in and read. So that's when it really sort of started for me. And it was no different for this as well, because the audition for this, I went in there. I mean, this was a fellow colleague of mine who told me about the audition. And, I thought, okay, why not just give it a go? It's the same thing, So I went over there. They sent an email to me asking me to pick two characters, which I did. But initially, it wasn't, I didn't pick King at first. I did sort of pick Rex.
You get to pick your character for the audition.
Yeah, for the audition, right? So initially, I didn't sort of audition for Rex or King, even though I had practiced for King. I went in there with two characters. One of them was Rex, and the other one was Sunny, right? So when I tried Sunny, they heard it. They were okay with it, and they just asked if I had any other, alternatives, any other options. So I took King and I did the voice for King, and they were very happy with it. So that's how I landed it.
Right.
And,
So now that you're doing it, it's 13 episodes, and I'm sure there are deadlines to meet every so often with regards to completing the first season.
Well, the thing is, I think as far as the recording and the deadlines were concerned, I mean, they did have a deadline, but the thing is, the recording was done not in such a way that, you had to basically be there at this particular time, or they were quite flexible in terms of the recording schedule, but within a certain time frame, like within a week, you've got this amount of time to basically pick your slots, which is what a lot of us did, so in that sense, it was pretty flexible, allowing us a bit of time to.
What's a better time? I know with voiceover talents, there are different times of the day where they like to record. Some people like recording at night, some people during the day. Is it based on that or the availability of the studio?
I think it's both, really. One thing, the availability of the studio, because if you give them a time, they've got to check the studio to see whether they're available. And as far as the other bit is concerned, the former, some people are pretty picky about when they want to do a voiceover. They feel they do it a lot better in the mornings, or they feel better when they do it in the afternoon, in the night. So for me,
you know how when you wake up, your voice sounds bassier, heavier. Do you depend? You don't have to depend on that because it's basically 24/7.
Unless you eat a lot of spice and have. It does affect you. It does. Food in a way does affect your voice in that particular sense, because if you had something really spicy or something like that, your voice would be your throat would be burning for one thing, and then your voice would be a lot higher. It won't be as bassy. I mean, for me anyway, I've tried this out. So I kind of know that I need to avoid all that stuff.
Doing VOs and reading the news 10 years ago and now, do you see a change in your voice?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think 10 years ago when I first started, I was pretty new to this whole thing, I mean, and obviously I was just throwing my voice about, even though it sounded okay to a lot of people. But for me, I think when I look back on it and how I progressed up until this point, I think, it has toned down in terms of coarseness and a lot more control, and you kind of know your voice inside out as well. So you know what sort of intensity you want to give it, and how to sort of rein it back if you're going to, if you start to sound really coarse or something like that, So you over the years you tend to sort of gain an experience with your voice, and you know how to use it. Definitely.
Well, we're going to watch one of the videos from Rimba Racer with Kevin's voice there, and we're going to come back and get him to do a couple of voices for us, if that's okay with you.
That's fine. That's fine.
We'll look at this video. Stay with us.
Call me Rex. You don't want to get on my bad side. If you see the Atlas coming up, you better get out of the way. Because guess what? Size does matter.
The race has begun!
He certainly sounded like a brother there. Size does matter.
Size does matter.
Jeez.
Right? So yeah, no, it was actually
just for the line. Size does matter. How did you have to do it a couple of times, or
actually I did that in one take.
Jeez,
I did that in one take because when I was doing it, the voice director Joe was usually telling me, give it a really sort of mean voice to it, call me Rex,
right?
So when I did it the first go, he was actually very happy with it, and I was quite happy with it, So yeah, I think that's basically that was the one take that I did. Yeah.
So there's Rex. Yeah. So if you were to do King, do King and Rex,
you might know me as Mr. King, as organizer of the Rimba Grand Prix. I promise you the most spectacular show ever on Bernama TV. There you go.
And let's do Rex now.
Rex. Call me Rex. You don't want to get on my bad side. If you see the Atlas coming up, I'm going to ram you, Jared Rutnam. Totally. I'm going to ram you.
So, do you go in and do both voices, or when you go in, you do one voice at a time?
Most of the recordings that I did were actually with both the voices. So usually when I start off with Rex first because he's a bit more strenuous in terms of the lowness and bassiness of his voice. And if you look at Rex, if you ever get to look at Rex, and I looked at Rex, and he's the kind of person who's kind of aloof, but he's a big bully initially, but he's kind of aloof. And yeah, his lines are, not to say limited, but there are very few lines for him, actually, truth be told, but they're very significant lines. So usually when I go in, I start off with that character first, and then I move on to King, because King is more of this natural voice as opposed to Rex, which is a lot lower, more bassier. So I usually start with Rex, and then I move on to King, and it's always done both the characters, if and when they require it. Of course,
what would you recommend if one wants to do what you're doing, or maybe practice to get a low voice like you? All of us, when I first got on radio, I try to fake a low voice. Hi, I'm Jared Rutnam.
Yeah, when you do that, your face looks like this. It's like you're really trying, No, I think it's not a question of trying to get a low voice. I think you should be comfortable with your voice and learn how to use it, and it's something that, a lot of people can do, and some people, just, can't do it. Not to say that they, I'm not trying to belittle them, but the point is, you need to have a certain control over your voice, to be able to move up and down and move all over the place. You know how to put a lot of, character into it. It requires a bit of skill and, of course, a little bit of acting skills as well. To get it
practice
in.
is also
practice is definitely it. And usually, like for me, when I started doing voiceovers, I was actually reading stories to my kids. So I started from there. Small little things.
I don't have kids. Can I come read to your kids?
But the thing is, the point is, when you start reading stories, kids' stories and stuff like that, you tend to sort of start from there. And, I was privileged because, I had kids, and I had a lot of storybooks to read for them. And on top of that, all the old cartoons that I used to watch as well kind of helped as well.
And for people who want to do what you did before, get into news reading or get into radio and TV, what would be your advice to them for wanting to practice?
Well, I think for that, it's kind of difficult to say what exactly it is you need to do, but you need to be very articulate for one thing. You need to pronounce every single word. You need to work on pronunciation. Pronunciation is a must, definitely. Whether it's newscasting or whether you're doing a voiceover ad, you obviously need to have your pronunciation is key. And of course, you can't be monotonous with your voice. You can't just say it in one way and then expect people to understand you. You sound like a robot.
You need dynamics.
You need a lot of dynamism in your voice. Whether you want to go high or low. And don't try to mimic people too much. It's okay to sort of get an idea of what they do, but work within your own capabilities. And if your voice is not meant to go low, it's not meant to go low. So stop trying. Stick within your range. And most people say that having a low voice is really the key thing. Sort of thing. But no, it's not. The voice talent industry is very much it's very much bigger than what it was before. So there are a lot of talents. Just work within your capability and have your own feel. Give your own feel to it. Absolutely.
Kevin, once again, pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
You're
a great man. Much for having me.
Well, the great Kevin Barnaby, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us right here at The Nation. We're going to take another break. Of course, don't forget, Rimba Racer will be out on TV on the 10th,
Yes, this Saturday, actually.
This Saturday, right.
The DM version.
Having said that, this Saturday, there's a launch for a book. We'll be coming back and we'll be speaking to the author of that book. It's a very interesting book. Stay with us right here at The Nation. This is Bernama TV. I'm Jared Ratnam.
Halo, apa kabar pemirsa? Salam dari Jakarta. Sebuah program kerjasama Kantor Berita Indonesia Antara dengan Kantor Berita Malaysia bernama kembali hadir menjumpai Anda.
Sedar tak kita tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, keadaan iklim yang tak menentu sekarang ni. Perubahan iklim meningkatkan kejadian kemarau, derebu, banjir dan ia menyumbang kepada perubahan iklim yang berlaku secara drastik. Inilah dia faktor-faktornya. Yang pertama, asap dari kenderaan. Yang kedua, penebangan dan pembakaran hutan. Yang ketiga, pembebasan asap dari industri perkilangan. Dan yang keempat, pelupusan sisa buangan. Ini usaha yang Pak Abu buat, iaitu yang pertama, menanam pokok. Yang kedua, mengurangkan atau tidak menggunakan beg plastik. Yang ketiga, mengasingkan bahan buangan. Yang keempat, mengitar semula bahan buangan. Dan yang kelima, memilih barangan dari bahan kita semula. Ada banyak lagi usaha yang boleh kita lakukan. Antaranya, kurangkan pemanduan kereta persendirian dan banyakkan penggunaan kenderaan awam.
Anda adalah sebahagian daripada penyelesaiannya.
Menongkah batasan masa, mengupas isu semasa, menjadi saluran pelbagai suara. Segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us right here on Bernama TV's Nation. Well, we did speak to some interesting characters. One was a TV newsreader before, another was a radio host, and of course we were talking about the industry. What industry we were talking about? We were talking about the voiceover industry. It's a very interesting industry. From there, let's move on to books. And with me today is an author, Jocelyn Ooi is the name, and she's come up with a book. It's called Picking Up the Pieces, an Asian Single Mother's Post-Divorce Roadmap. She wrote this book. It's going to be launched on Saturday in Kuala Lumpur, and that's happening at News Central. I will be giving you details in a short while, but in the meantime, let's meet the author, Jocelyn. A very good day to you, and thank you very much for joining us here.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you in the studio, and I did speak to you about this book at radio, and it was very interesting to hear your story and how you wanted women to know about what you went through. So you made it, you turned this into a roadmap for women who need a sort of a guide. And when you came up with this book, of course, the idea of coming up with the book, who came up with that idea? Did you come up with the idea on your own, or did someone help you with coming up with the idea?
I think this was actually my own idea to come up with this book, because I wanted to put my experience for past 10 years as a single parent into a book,
right,
so that, you know, at least I think if there's anyone that is having the same journey as
right,
what I had gone through, will be able to pick it up, and hopefully they'll be able to learn something through my experience.
Right. So it's been 10 years
Yeah.
from the time you had a divorce or filed for a divorce.
Correct.
And you had to start again. Was it a starting all over again, starting a new life? Was it that hard for you?
It was difficult, but again, I think for myself, I'm actually a very independent person. So it was difficult because I have 3 small children, and to bring out 3 small children going to schools and you know, throughout the whole journey was really tough. But I must say that I have a very good network support from my parents, and in fact from my in-law as well, to help me through and put together.
One thing that I've picked up on the last interview we had over radio, that is, you talked about stereotyping, how women are stereotyped, and you know, if you're a divorcee, it's a harder life in Malaysia. You know, how would you explain that?
I think there's a stigma against the people, single parents, whether it's mainly from the divorce case, because the stigma is that, well, people will probably like look down at you and think that probably it's our faults as a woman and you know why we get into these situations. But I beg to differ that, because through my own experience, if you are able to raise up your children and you are able to carry yourself well, generally I think you speak for yourself and not to worry so much about what people think about you.
So during that time when you had that divorce, I'm sure you went through a period where you know you were grieving. That process, was that a long process?
It took me a couple of months. It was quite a long process because internally I have to heal internally and have a peace of heart myself as well before I can actually move on. So I allow myself to actually have that space to recover. Probably a few months or so.
Who was instrumental in helping you recover? Was it your friends and family, or you know, how did you do that? Some people do it to means of spirituality, some do it to family and friends, always being around people. Well, how was it like for you?
For me, I think it was actually a combination through the family supports that I have, but importantly, as I said, that I need to have an internal peace, and hence I actually do a lot of prayers and chanting. For the first 1 year, I actually went to the temple on a weekend basis, and I took my children there as well to do their spiritual classes, and that's where I learned about chanting as well.
And that kind of helped with the healing process.
Correct.
So now that you're all well, and you know all this is behind you, it's in your past, you put a little something out for women to remember. I'm sure that there were times in that 10 years when you face challenges and you want women to know about this. In general, when we talk about women who get out of a marriage, of course the grieving process is one. Then when you start over, what's the first thing one has to look at? Especially if you have kids.
I think because as a parents, we always portray, we need to portray a good example to our children as well. So I think one important thing is to be able to show the children that we are always there for them. You know, we are actually strong. We will always be there for them. So if you ask me a question, what important thing is that we got to be strong, and we got to look after ourselves well.
Oh, of course, there's always talk about when husband and wife files for a divorce, the kids are affected. You need to be careful of that, and it's going to ruin the lives of the kids. How has that been for you and your kids?
Yeah, for my kids, because at the point of time they were still very small, you know, they have not gone to school yet. So the way we actually communicate to them will be slightly different. Basically, we ensure them that the mommy and daddy will still always be with them, although we're actually staying apart. And in any of their school activities, we try to be involved together as a parents. But I suppose as they grow up into teenagers and all that, that will be a different aspect as well. There will be times that they'll be asking, you know.
I'm sure they're bound to ask questions.
So you got to be able to explain to them if they are teenagers, to give them a very realistic examples, so that they are able to understand, and then they are able to then you know, bring it up to their friends as well. That, you know, they don't feel shy, even though they are living with a family of one parents. They themselves can actually do well as well in school as well at home.
So, you know, finding that balance between not sounding like a fairy tale and you know, getting the child to understand reality. How would you do that? You know, saying if a son were to ask his mother, or daughter were to ask mother, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot, but if someone were to ask their parents, you know, what happened to you and dad? You know, how does one deal with that? How do you think one should deal with that?
I think they can actually deal with that easily from what they have gone through on their daily life as well, on how they see that their parents are communicating with each other for the benefits of the children's. I think a lot of things they don't have to be taught upfront on how to be able to deal with it, or talk to their friends when being asked that questions. It's through their daily lives that they are experiencing that, and they can actually speak to their friends quite naturally.
And you know, I mean, with parents and children, there's always a chasm there. You know, respect for my mom and dad, and when there's a breakup in the family, things kind of change. And they say, I don't know if it's true, they say that the closer you are to your kids, if you are like a friend to your child, it'll be easier for the child to accept what you're going through or what the family is going through. Is that true?
I think that's true. Not only in this situation, I think in any situation with a family of parents, of a father and mother, you will also always have to maintain this relationship with them, relationship of other than as a parent, as a good friend to them, especially as they are growing up in the stages as a teenage. If they find that you are a good friend to them, then they are able to be more open to you and tell you their stories. Otherwise, they may feel that there's a gap between you and their children.
Is there like a support group? I don't know if there is now, but is there when you file for your divorce or when your marriage you ended your marriage? Was there a support group of some sort where single mothers get together and talk people through this, or is there a support group now?
For my time, about 10 years ago, there wasn't such a support group. Maybe there was, but I've not been actively involved into that. And in terms of support of books, like for example, where I tried to research for some books, especially in the Asian context, I couldn't find any.
You couldn't find any.
And hence that is one of the reasons I came about the idea of writing this book.
So basically, whilst talking to you off the air, you said that this is now being published by MPH, but initially it was meant to be a self-published book. And how did this whole collaboration with MPH come along?
Yeah, initially it was self-published book because I wasn't very sure whether MPH would like to take this on as part of their publishing book as well. So what happened is that I talked to them through a friend, through a contact that I have. I talked to them and sent them a synopsis and the first 2 chapters. And I think I'm fortunate enough that they called me and said they are willing to partner with me to go through these projects. And that's where it started with the editing process and so on.
Right. So it started with the editing process. You started with the synopsis, then you came up with the book. Of course, they went through the editing process, but the synopsis, getting the ideas and putting the ideas out on paper and then trying to compile it into a book is, for me, is a very difficult thing. How did you find that process?
It is also a very difficult thing for me as well because it doesn't come naturally for me, so it takes quite a long time. But with the guidance that I have from the editorial team from the MPH,
so they give you advice as to what you can do and what you can't do. Are there guidelines in writing a book like this?
There's no specific guidelines, but what I've done before I returned this book, I've actually attended a short course about writing courses as well. And
did that help?
Yeah, that helps. That gives me some brief idea and what I need to write
in outlining the book.
Yes,
essentially the content was all what was from inside you. And you had to map out that content from 10 years ago, slowly put it down. And this whole process of putting this book together, how long did it take? I mean, for you to complete your part of the book.
For me to complete my part book is about close to 1 year, and another half a year or so for me to work together with MPH editorial teams and to finalize this book. So it takes about 1.5 years or so.
1.5 years to get this out, and it's soon going to be out in the market. It's going to be sold at MPH.
Yes, it's already in the market. It's already sold in the MPH, in the Times bookshop as well.
Right. Yeah. And now that this book is out, I'm sure prior to the book being printed, did you pass it to a couple of friends to go through it and get their feedback?
Yes, I do. Before this hard copy was printed, it was actually in the ebook format. So the ebook is in the Amazon, Kobo, as well as the MPH online. So I do have some feedback from my friends. So
honest feedback?
Yeah.
I mean, as a friend, they'll say, hey, it's a great book, that always happens. But how do you know you're getting honest feedback about the book?
I have quite a number of close friends, and they are also from different gaps. Some of them are singles, they haven't had a families, and some already have a family, and some of them in my situation. So generally I think this book is not only targeting for the single parenting. From the information that I gather, it's also a very helpful advice even for someone that's not married.
Let's take a look at chapter 1 of this book. Chapter 1 of this book says, fix yourself first. It simply says that, and I can't fix the world. If you want to make a difference in life, you have to direct your energies in a focused way. This was said by Bill Bryson. And tell us a little bit about this chapter, and what did you write in here about fixing yourself?
Fixing yourself first, I'll cover a few topics inside there. First of all, stop blaming yourself, for example. You got to stop blaming yourself.
Well, did you blame yourself back then?
Yeah, initially I did, because when these things happens to me, I did ask myself, why is it me? Is it because of my fault? And is it because of my shortcomings and all that? And I realized there's no point blaming yourself. You just need to move forward with our life. So that's the first thing that you need to do.
Yeah, but for that paradigm shift to happen, something that there must be a process that you go through. Of course, it's denial at first, and then how do you come to terms with it? Is there one moment that brings you to terms with it, or a series of moments?
I think it's a series of moments. It's just not one moment. So series of moments, and also the time as well. So I think time is a very important healing process.
Right. So time is the greatest healer. They say in chapter 2. They say, let the past be the past. And what do you talk about in there?
So once we have managed to overcome our emotions, feelings and all that, we have to move on with our life. And we got to just leave the past behind and move on with what we need to do in our daily lives, and in finding something that's more meaningful to us and something that we always wanted to do, for example.
Right. So this book is out now. It's called Picking Up the Pieces, an Asian Single Mother's Post-Divorce Roadmap. Well, it's already out in stores in MPH, and the launch will be this Saturday. We'll give you the date and the time, or rather the time of the launch this Saturday. But in the meantime, there are 8 chapters here, and it's all about fixing yourself and getting ready, preparing yourself for the world. With writing a book like this, there's also, while you write a book, there a lot of authors say you go through mental blocks. How do you get past these mental blocks?
Yeah, mental blocks is actually quite common in writing this book. So when I have that, I'll just put it aside and try to do things that I like. For example, walking in a park or listen to some nice music. And when I get the inspirations to write again, then I'll start it. So usually I'll do that over the weekends or at night, because I'm also a full-time working mom as well.
Right. So you do it over the weekends or at night. How long can you write for a time? If you at one sitting, how long does it take you to?
I usually don't write very long, probably about half an hour to an hour or so. And
so you don't force yourself to write, you write when you're able to write.
Yes.
Is that the technique you employ?
Yes, because I think if I have the idea flow through for me to write, sometimes it could be more than an hour, but if it's not, I'm happy enough to be able to just write for half an hour and stop there, and then pick it up again when I have the inspirations to do so.
So in this 10 years of being a single mother and of bringing up 3 kids, I do understand that your kids are all doing very well in school, and I mean, you have a happy family unit. What was the biggest lesson other than I mean, being strong, so on and so forth, moving on, for you 10 years on, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned from this experience of matrimony, having a family, and then subsequently being on your own with your kids?
Biggest lesson, I think, is sometimes I think back, I do not know how I've actually managed to actually go through this as well.
It's a journey of sorts.
Yeah, it's been a long journey, and I have then come to even realize that there are many things in life that we can actually do if we actually put our focus and mind into that.
Right.
Sometimes as a human we think that we are not able to do this and that, but unless you are into that situations, you have no choice, but it's just a one way that you have to really do it. And time management as well is very important.
But don't you think I'm not trying to judge how easy it was for you, but think of you and a woman's a full-time housewife. You have a job and you've been working for the longest time.
Yeah.
And do you think it would be easier for you than for a woman who's a full-time housewife?
To actually start
over again? Yeah.
I think it's equally difficult as well, because no one wants to be in this situation. So whether you are a full-time working mom or you are actually a housewife, is equally difficult. But for me, because I'm working, so hence my contacts of friends and.
So you're a professional, so it's.
Yeah.
Do you think that helped quite a lot with your contacts and your network?
I think that helps a lot in terms of, especially in terms of the financial part as well. Because I suppose for someone that's been a full-time housewife, probably the main struggle struggle is actually in terms of financial, because you got to be financially quite independent in order to bring out your children. So for me, because I'm working mom, so that financial
wasn't
part,
a worry for you then.
Yeah, that helps to take care of that a little bit. So you'll be slightly easier compared to someone that is being a full-time housewife.
Does the memory stay there? Or, I mean, the pain, they say, diminishes after a while. Has the pain diminished after 10 years?
I think it is having to being able to write, put my experience into writing and coming on air like that. You know, I've passed through the pain process. I think I've stopped crying. There's no more tears to cry on that. So I've actually moved on with my life.
You know, when we first invited her to do the interview, she nearly declined because she said she likes being low profile. But now she's here. We'd like to thank you for doing that. And for women who are going through trouble, do they get in touch with you? Do they write to you? Do they talk to you about these things, knowing that you've done this?
Because this book has actually gone into the market only for a short period of time. In fact, it's only up in the market by mid of December. So far there's none, but those has come back to me are my close friends.
Subsequently, you've come up with this book. Are there any ideas to come up with another book?
That's always in my mind to come out with the second book. As what people say, when you have the first, you have the second book.
There's a part 2 to this. Do you think that there should be a part 2 to this, picking up the pieces?
I hope so.
Right. And what would you write about in part 2 of this? What do you think you have as a structure? I'm sure you've already worked it out in your head. You're very methodical about the way you do things.
Yeah, but I think I'll probably want to keep the reader in suspense and also put my thought in a better perspective first before I tell more about
what's
the
an
part
author
2.
without suspense? Huh? So don't forget that this book is going to be launched on Saturday. If you can bring Cam 3 into close in to see this book. Well, this book is going to be launched on Saturday, and it's going to be launched at New Central.
Yes,
MPH, yeah?
correct.
New Central MPH. It's going to be at 12:30 in the afternoon till about 2. So she'll be there signing books, and she's also going to be talking about her experience. If you know of someone who's going through this experience of a divorce or working her way on her own after a divorce, you should get this person to come there. Anyone and everyone, if you can, come support Malaysian authors. It's a fantastic book, and it's going to be launched on a Saturday at New Central MPH in Kuala Lumpur. So what's planned for the launch? You're going to be there, you're going to be doing your thing, you're going to be signing books. After the launch, is there going to be like a press conference?
There'll be some media coverage during the day itself, and there'll be a short Q&A. Happy to take any questions for the audience.
Yeah, see, this is the thing about Q&As. It scares me, saying if you've done something or you've come up with something, the worst thing that can happen is you're put in front of audience and people throw you with questions about the book. Are you ready to answer all these questions?
Yeah, I think whatever questions that they throw to me, if I could answer, I will be glad to answer as well.
Right. And before I let you go, very quickly, your message to Malaysia or to women going through marriage problems, about the book, about anything at all you'd like to say to us who have not been through what you've been through or are going through what you're going through.
I think my message to them is to come in peace with themselves internally, and to be strong for themselves, and don't look down upon your own self, because you'll never know that you'll be able to achieve so much more than what you have achieved so far. And perhaps also be happy and contented with life, with whatever you have for now, because you may think that you're in the worst situations, but you never know that someone else outside there is actually having a more difficult time than you.
Right. If you Google MPH or go to MPH online, you'll be able to find out more about the book. Don't forget, be there 12:30 Saturday afternoon at MPH New Central. The book launch is going to be there. She's going to be signing books, and she's also going to be talking a little bit about life story and taking your questions. On that note, we'd like to thank you for joining us at The Nation. We'd like to thank you, Jocelyn, for coming in. It was a pleasure to have you here, and we hope for you all the best with your book, and of course success with the second book and of course the first book. Thank you very much. Have a great day ahead. We'll be back tomorrow with more for you on Bernama Today and also at The Nation. I'm Jared Ratnam signing off. Have a great day ahead.